Hello, BookTube. It's a beautiful sunny summer afternoon, and the walls around you are 4 feet thick and completely soundproof. It's time for a little TBR torture, in other words, for this Monday. I've got some books I want to show you, starting with a reprint. A surprising reprint. Didn't see it coming. This is The Magic Christian by Terry Southern, which is, I'm told by this copy, this is from Grove Press, that The Magic Christian is 60 years old. That seems unbelievable to me. And I understand completely why some editor at Grove would want to reprint this. Because it's the story of an exuberant, bullyish kind of billionaire named Guy Grand. And I'm sure that somewhere at Grove, somebody thought, hey, this is a Trump-like character. So this novel suddenly has trenchants again. The main character in this book is not Trump-like at all, except that he uses money to get his way. But other than that, they have no similarities whatsoever. The Grant character in this novel is totally self-aware, and he's not evil. He believes that everybody in the world that he meets has a price. That if he waves a few $1,000s, which he carries on him at all times, in front of somebody and asks them to do something, he only has to increase the amount of money to get them to say yes. But the things that he asks people to do are largely absurd instead of evil. And there are plenty of times in the course of the book where he just gives people money, which is something that, if you're going for, 2019 relevance, that is something that Donald Trump has never done. Literally never done in his life. He has never given anyone any money of any kind, even a dollar, even a relative. And certainly not to strangers, and certainly not to charities. So, on the one hand, I'm not sure about the rationale for reprinting this. I know I've said on this channel before that I don't really like this kind of headline-grabbing opportunism. A book ought to be its own reason for reprinting. But on the other hand, I'm looking forward to rereading this. I read this a long, long time ago and really liked it. If I remember correctly, the one thing that bothered me is that the author was allowed to italicize words at his own discretion. That's never a good idea. The novel was written in 1959, so it narrowly precedes the idiotic navel-gazing of the Beat generation, and was revered by it. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a kind of an odd reprint. It underscores what I've mentioned many times on this channel, which is that reprint culture in America and the UK really does satisfy my urge for older books. I think that's the reason why it is very much cut down on my attendance at used bookstores. But I'm going to try and do something about that this summer, while the summer remains. I'm going to try and do something about that, because you all seem to like the adventure of used book hunting, as opposed to me just telling you about books that come to my doorstep. So I might do something about that soon. This next one is by Robert Clark, and it looks a little strange, and it comes out, I think, in November. Yeah, this comes out in November from the University of Iowa Press, and this is My Victorians, in which the author, this is a weird combination of autobiography and history. The author he studies a handful of Victorian figures, artists, architects, literary critics, great authors, and sort of provides the reader with biographical sketches, but they are far more dramatically presented. This is not an academic book in any way, although I'd be willing to bet the research is really sound. And I've mentioned on this channel many times that I consider the Victorians to be the most remarkable generation of humans that have ever lived. The Victorian era, I think, is the most remarkable era of human creativity, that by a wide margin. The Italian Renaissance, 5th century Athens, Periclean Athens, these Elizabethan England, these periods tend to be the ones that historians and commentators go to right away to say this is the high watermark of collective human creativity. They don't hold a candle. They don't even come close to the Victorian era. So I'm always up to read about Victorians, and this is a tiny little thing. It won't take any time at all. Then this next one, I believe, comes out in August. Yeah, this comes out at the beginning of August. This is by Tim Clydesdale and Kathleen Garces Foley, and it's called The 20-Something Soul, Understanding the Religious and Secular Lives of American Young Adults. And I want to read you a bit from the dust jacket here. Today's 20-somethings have been labeled the lost generation for their presumed inability to identify and lead fulfilling lives. They've been named kidults for their alleged refusal to grow up and accept adult responsibility, and they've been named the least religious generation for their purported disinterest in religion and spirituality. These characterizations are not only unflattering, they are also wrong. The 20-something soul tells the optimistic story about American 20-somethings by introducing readers to the full spectrum of American young adults, many of whom live purposely, responsibly, and reflectively. Some prioritize faith and involvement in a religious congregation. Others reject their childhood religion to explore alternatives and practice a personal spirituality. Still others sideline religion and spirituality until their lives get settled or reject organized religion completely. Notice what's happening there. You're hearing a fan dance there. You're hearing some very careful tap dancing right in the dust jacket before you even get to the book. What were the options that we were given? Some prioritize faith. Some reject their childhood religion and explore alternatives or practice personal spirituality. Some sideline their religion until their lives are settled, or they reject organized religion completely. Not all religion, just organized completely. Notice the one element, the one choice that's not presented here is young people, 20-somethings, dropping religion completely from their lives. No. They don't do that. They might prioritize faith. They might reject their original faith in favor of some other faith, or in favor of some nebulous kind of personal spirituality, or they might sideline their faith until their life is more settled, and then they'll pick it up again. Or they might reject organized faith, but not all faith. But the idea, the possibility, the alternative, that 20-something Americans are simply don't care about religion in any way. They don't even think about it. They're not seeking alternatives. They're not doing anything of the kind. That is left out here. And you also notice, I'm sure you noticed the little sleight of hand in the first paragraph. The first paragraph talks about today's 20-somethings, and the second paragraph talks about today's American 20-somethings. America is a hotbed of religious zealotry. It is by far the most mindlessly religiously zealous country in the entire world, by a long margin. People talk about radical Islam and certain radical Islamic countries where there are Sharia and there are faith courts and all sorts of that. They don't hold a candle. Those countries don't hold a candle to certain parts of America. The religious parts of America believe the earth is flat. They believe the earth is 6,000 years old. They believe that black people were put on earth to serve white people. They believe that women were put on earth as, in their own words, in their own Sunday sermons, beasts that must be domesticated by men. They really believe that, and the number of places outside of America where that belief is held by this same number of people is vanishingly small, just vanishingly small. And this book, we don't judge books by their cover jacket copy, but nevertheless, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that most young people, most 20-somethings in America, don't think about religion at all. They don't rebel against it. They're not searching for some kind of alternate spirituality. It's not part of their lives in any way. It never crosses their mind, which is a nightmare scenario to the fundamental religious. Fundamentally religious people they'll love a good battle. They'll love pitying you for damning your immortal soul. But the one thing that they cannot stand is that you're not even having the conversation. It's not that you're rejecting things. It's that none of it interests you in any way. And I think that is the case. Not only in most parts of America, but in most parts of the world. So it's going to be fascinating to read this book and see why these authors say that those contentions are lies. We shall see. I will report back. The next one is science fiction, and it's Chinese science fiction, which is all the rage. This comes out much later, I believe, October, and it's by Cixin Liu, and it is translated by Joel Martinson, and it's called Supernova Era. And it's a science fiction novel in which a dead star near Earth, emits an enormous supernova of radiation, and that is going to affect Earth. Hey, let me tell you here. 8 light years away, a star has died, creating a supernova event that showers Earth with deadly levels of radiation. Within a year, everyone over the age of 13 will die. So the countdown begins. Parents apprentice their children and try to pass on the knowledge they'll need to keep the world running. But the last generation may not want to carry on their parents' legacy. And though they imagine a better, brighter world, they may bring about a future so dark humanity won't survive. And the science fiction here this comes out in October, I believe. Yes, this comes out in late October. And the science fiction here has a bit of a grounding in reality. One of the many, many things, one of the many, many ways that Earth has lucked out, the planet Earth, has been intensely lucky in its history. Intensely lucky. And one of the ways that it's been intensely lucky is precisely this thing, nearby planets being washed in a gigantic cloud of intense radiation from a nearby stellar event, has not happened to Earth that we know of in Earth's history, but certainly in any time, in billions of years. And that's incredibly lucky. Many, many, many planets in the galaxy have suffered that fate. And when that happens, your planet is not going to evolve life anymore. It's not like it's going to get bathed in that kind of lethal radiation for 1,000 years and then recover. No, it's not. It can recover from massive impacts. If it's a planet like Earth, which is intensely biology friendly, Earth is a profusely living place. If it's a planet like that, it can be struck with a catastrophic impact, and life will resume or restart. The conditions here are wonderful for life, to the extent you can see it yourself. If you see a rocky hole in the ground, and it's summertime, and it pours rain, if you come back to that rocky hole in the ground in a week and do microbiology on it, you'll see that it's thriving with life. And that's the case all over the world, all over the planet. In one way or another, there's life in every single crevice of this planet. But if, for instance, Alpha Centauri were to have this kind of stellar event, and that radiation cloud were to envelop Earth, all that would change. The one science fiction gimmick in here is that bit about, what was it? People, everyone over the age of 13 will die. I have no idea why that would be true. It would kill everybody. But either way, I confess, it's of course utterly forbidden in 2019 to strike any but an immediately reverential, worshipful, and enthusiastic note about anything at all written by anyone, as long as they're not American. So it's kind of forbidden for me to say it, but nevertheless, it's true that no Chinese science fiction has done anything for me. I've read, it's a gigantic fad in science fiction now, and I've read a huge amount of it, and whether it's a problem with translation or not, it doesn't, most of it doesn't do anything for me whatsoever. So we'll see if this will be the exception. Then we have a proven quantity. This is an author we've seen on this channel before. I really, really like him, and I really, really recommend him. This is Paul Doiron. This one is called Almost Midnight. Most of his titles don't make any sense, or don't have any connection to the book. And these are stories about a Maine game warden who solves crimes, and they are terrific. They are absolutely terrific. And this one has a more convoluted plot than usual. While on vacation, warden investigator Mike Bowditch receives a strange summon from Billy Cronk, one of his oldest friends, and a man he reluctantly had to put behind bars for murder. And in the Maine penitentiary where he is currently living, he's referred to as Killer Cronk. Billy wants him to investigate a new female prison guard with a mysterious past, and Mike feels honor-bound to help his friend. That's the kind of person that Mike Bowditch is. He feels honor-bound to help even a man he himself has put away for murder. He's a really, really good main character, someone that you will like spending time with in book after book. But when the guard becomes a victim in the brutal attack at the prison, he realizes there may be a dark cover-up at play, and that Billy and his family may be at risk. Then Mike receives a second call for help, this time from a distant mountain valley where Shadow, a wolf hybrid he once cared for, has been found shot by an arrow and is currently clinging to life. He searches for the identity of the bowman, but his investigation is blocked at every turn by the increasingly hostile community. And when Billy's wife and children are threatened, Mike finds himself tested as never before. And the key, the fun of police procedural or murder mystery thrillers like this that have these dual-pronged plots, the fun is always that you know at the beginning that those two prongs are going to be connected. It's kind of a game on the part of the writer to make them look as unconnected as possible, and yet they will bear on each other. If they aren't committed by the same person, they will still bear on each other. And I mean, I'm on for the ride with this author. He can do no wrong, in my opinion. I love his books, and there are a whole bunch of them, right? There are a whole bunch of these. Yeah, there are about 10 of these. I think my favorite one so far was Knife Creek, although Massacre Pond was really good as well. These are terrific police procedural sort of main character hero Netflix ready murder mysteries. So I recommend them. And this next one, it's Michael Crichton-esque, which is both a promise and a stark warning. We may have seen it on this channel already. This comes out soon, I think. Early August. This is by let's see here, Bill Shutt and J.R. Finch, and it's the Darwin Strain, with a blurb on the cover from James Cameron saying that these people fill the void left by Michael Crichton. I myself might have wished for that void to remain unfilled, or maybe fill it with garbage. but this is a Preston Crichton style pseudo-scientific thriller set in the present day. That has its grounding in these things always have a grounding in the past. There's always a mystery from the past that becomes more relevant in the present day. Let's see here. This is from the Dust Jacket copy. Though the fighting has stopped and Hitler is vanquished, a dangerous new war between America and the Soviet Union has begun. Invaluable in defeating the Nazis, accidental cryptozoologist R.J. McCready and Yanni Thorne, an indigenous Brazilian and expert in native animal behavior. I think about Trang Martinez. I think about the Steve Healy book where we have an investigator at an international underwear modeling team. These two are working for the Pentagon again. Sent to a mysterious Greek island in a remote corner of the Mediterranean, they are investigating rumors about a volcanic spring with a miraculous healing property that the locals say is guarded by sea monsters from ancient legend. The islanders believe that, like the cove at Fatima, the spring is a gift from God. To the Greek Orthodox Church, it is a sign of a deadly evil foretold in apocalyptic texts. Alongside French and Chinese researchers, men who share their strange, blood-stained past, Mac and Yanni discover that the volcanic spring's undersea plumes release an exotic microbe that can transform life with astonishing speed. To find the source of the volcanic springs, Mac and Yanni must find a way to neutralize the dragons of Revelation, the fearsome aquatic species known as the Kraken, which are preventing the scientists from exploring deep beneath the sea's surface. Mutating at a bewildering pace, the Kraken has evolved a chillingly high alien intelligence. As a race to possess the miracle microbe heats up, tensions among geopolitical actors, religious leaders, and ordinary scientists confronted with the unknown escalate into chaos. And you can hear, even from that description, the hallmarks of Preston-esque, Crichton-esque scientific thrillers like this, which is that they're going to have only the barest nodding acquaintance with actual science. The idea of the evolution, in heavy quotes, of these beasts, the Kraken, is not going to bear any relation to what evolution looks like. It's going to be comic book science is what's going to happen throughout here. But I read a little bit of the beginning, and it sort of won me over because one of the French researchers at the beginning of the book is Jacques Cousteau. Sacre bleu. I can't go wrong there. And then the last thing I want to show you is a graphic novel. And I'm overjoyed by it. I mentioned the other day on this channel, I was opining about the artist Mike Mignola, and I mentioned that he has often done propertied work, franchise work, adaptations earlier on in his career, and that in that case, who would even own the rights to such work, and where would it be collected? I mention it because I have some of those individual comic book issues that are falling apart because no one's collected them. No one, I thought, could collect them. And I mentioned one in particular. He did a 4-issue miniseries that was an adaptation of Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. A bit of an acquired taste of a movie that I myself like parts of it. It is a horrible, horrible, horrible movie. Indefensibly awful. But there are still parts of it that I liked. And I loved Mignola's adaptation of it. He was under strict control. He had to mimic the visuals of the movie, for instance, and a lot of those are ridiculous. He had to mimic some of the plot points of the movie, and a lot of those are ridiculous. But what he did art-wise on this thing was just amazing. It's made me keep the individual issues. And I lamented on camera how I wish that someone could collect those. And one of you mentioned that IDW, the comic book company IDW, is reprinting them this year, that they've made a new volume of Mike Mignola's Bram Stoker's Dracula. And so I, of course, reached out to IDW, and sure enough, it's true. July of 2019 is they collect all 4 of the Mike Mignola issues of Bram Stoker's Dracula. Amazing. Just wonderful. And boy, oh boy, I was flipping through this, and it is so much better than I remembered. Just amazing. Classic Mignola work. Where his look at that. This is Mina and Dracula in London. Figures are shadowy, heavy use of dark, towering backgrounds like that. Just amazing. There are all of our heroes at the death of Lucy, who we know that she's not really dead. We know that she's England's first undead. But boy, oh boy, it's such a thrill to have this. This is, look at that. This man belongs to me. Look at that. You can see already. You can see the ridiculous bun hairdo. You can see already that Mignola was under orders to follow the storyboard of the movie very closely. Given his own druthers, he would not have drawn Dracula this way as an old woman in a nightgown. But nevertheless, it's a thrill to have these again. The adaptation was written by Roy Thomas, who wrote a huge amount of Dracula stories in his comic book career. And now I have it. Now I don't have to worry about those individual issues anymore. The covers of my individual issues are falling apart. They're pulling right off the staples of the issues, and I don't have to worry anymore. So many thanks for the suggestion of this. This is wonderful. Those of you who are Mike Mignola completists, or even comic book fans just in general, this is now in your comic book shop. This is available from IDW. That is just wonderful. No idea that was the case. So there you go. That's a little TBR torture for you. We have Bram Stoker's Dracula with Mike Mignola illustrations. We have the Darwin Strain. It's going to be a bit of a strain. Then Almost Midnight by a police procedural thriller writer that if you don't know him, you really should give him a try. Because if you like that kind of writing, you're going to like it. Then Supernova Era. That all the old people are dying off on Earth. The 20-something soul, study of American 20-somethings and their various embraces of religion. My Victorians, it takes a handful of Victorians of all different kinds and studies the places where they live, the rhythms of their lives, the nature of their literature. I'm always on board for a Victorian study. And lastly, Terry Southern's The Magic Christian. His 1959 novel about a billionaire, a brash, loutish billionaire who uses money to get his way. And if you synopsize it that way, then I understand why they would reprint it in 2019. But there's a lot more going on there. It's nice to have it back. I just hope that whatever critical attention it gets in the press, for instance, isn't limited to that rather strained comparison. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm thinking that we should be reprinting lots of these old novels, whether they have a brash billionaire as their main character or not. But anyway, that is your Monday TBR torture, and now I will release you. But we will convene again. Thank you, BookTube.